My guest is Alan Jackowitz, and Alan is a Brooklyn native who grew up with the sound of rock and roll and adding machines. Struck with Parkinson's at age 50, his life was turned upside down, but he still kept his perspective and his wonderful sense of humor. As he says, people have called me heroic, and I've laughed or have been embarrassed. My life has facets that are far from heroic, but I've lived my life with Parkinson's with humor, energy, music, attitude, and pills. And I know that if heroic is too strong a word, exemplary might suffice. If I can be an example to anyone else about how to live a life with PD, I would be honored. Well, we are honored to have you with us today, Alan, and you've written this interesting book, No, I'm Not Drunk, Taming My Parkinson's with Music, Humor, and Charity. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be on your show with you. So thanks for having me.
So what made you write this book, Alan? I'm sure, a lot of people asked you a lot of questions and you thought, well, this might be a way to do it. But I love the title, No, I'm Not Drunk, Taming My Parkinson's.
The title rings rather true to those people afflicted in that you're often confused with being drunk. So I get a good laugh from people who can nod knowingly with me. But to answer your question as to why I wrote the book, I found myself over the past couple of years writing more and more on Facebook. There's many Parkinson's forums there where people write about their medicines and their ailments and kind of a commiseration / information type of thing. And I always write to try to lighten it up a little bit. So I try to write things humorous. I found more and more people liking what I wrote, and one thing led to another, and here I am writing a book out of that impetus.
Well, now, you have a lot of different chapters in here with a lot of different stories. And is there a way, what did you decide was how you wanted to write the book and what you wanted to talk about in the book? Because you've got everything from Hurricane Andrew to New York stories to stories about different people. What is it that you decided would be your topics?
Well, I wanted to make sure that everything kind of touched on the humor, music, and charity. So there should be one of those grand topics within each of my little stories. And I originally tried to be chronological about it, but realized it was better just to have it flow kind of organically. So to say why I included things is because of its adherence to the title, but why I put them where they were kind of haphazard after a while. Remember, again, I'm an accountant by trade. This is my first attempt at writing anything.
So you really tried to do it as logically as you possibly could.
Right, and I wasn't sure even the form it was going to take when I first sat down to write, because my Facebook writings have all been kind of this, maybe not as long as each of my chapters, but kind of quick and out. So it's almost like journal entries, more so than a complete memoir, so to speak.
But, in a lot of these stories, you don't necessarily talk about your Parkinson's. You're talking about a lot of different experiences. And so there are times, that you do bring it in, but not in every story. So, how did you decide what you were going to include that related to a PD and what didn't?
Well, I tried to I guess the reasoning behind the way the book is laid out is these stories, whether I talk about the PD or not, is all going on through my head and meaningful to me, almost as a coping mechanism, or as a way to live my life without mentioning the PD. Because in effect, what I've been trying, the sum total of the book is to quote, live your life. And try not to. I guess it's quite difficult, but try not to be burdened or overburdened with the disease as best as you can, and live your life the way you would have lived it anyway. And just use when the PD slows you down, go around it as opposed to having it thwart you.
So, to talk about PD for just a moment, what about people that you know who have PD? Are you able to help them in a variety of ways with your humorous look at life? Or what are some of the things that you have found in meeting other people with PD?
I've found that the lightness that I bring is welcomed almost unanimously. Meaning that if I could tell a joke or just live my life with a smile, or that people gain strength from it. It's a position I've never been in, nor did I seek, nor did I expect. But I'm finding that, like, even yesterday, I met somebody who was an Army Ranger veteran who's been shot. He had PTSD, and he found my story intriguing. He thanked me for making his day just by warming up to him and telling him about me. So, I don't profess to be some sort of oracle or anything like that, but I'm finding that ordinary people and ordinary things sometimes are more extraordinary than you might expect.
Well, that's true. I was watching The Good Wife the other night, and Michael J. Fox was on again, and he has kept his career going. I mean, he certainly is not doing what he used to do, but he has used PD to be able to show people what you can do with it, and even brings it into the storyline of The Good Wife. So, and I think by showing people of whatever different diseases there are or afflictions there are on television or in the media, people have a greater understanding of what it's all about. And so I ask, are you still practicing as a CPA?
No, I'm not. I guess the answer to the question is I'm a writer now.
You're a writer now. Okay. All right. Well, I can see there's a lot of, there's a lot of,
differently.
there's a lot of music in your book, and I think that there's some interesting stories. You have one about Harry Chapin in here of the summer of '72, and you say the radio included a very heavy rotation of Donna Fargo. I love the biopic the Coen brothers made about her life. Edward, Teddy Bear, and Harry Chapin. Of the three, Harry left an impression. And there's an example, too, because you said that he was the one who basically invented the rock musician call for charity, and his relationship with Oxfam, which is the World Hunger Organization, set the stage for the Concert for Bangladesh and Live Aid, amongst many others. And you were one of the first people in line, and you got a seat in the center of the second row. And you said that he entertained with his band the whole church for seemed like hours. And he said his first radio hit, he said, usually when I sing Taxi, Big John Wallace sings a high-pitched interlude, but he's not here today. Does anybody want to come up on stage and sing with me? And you went up and sang with him. So
almost a reflex. My hand went up. I had this opportunity. I'm gonna go for it.
Well, that's fabulous. Yeah, you. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he was a huge fan of mine back in 1972. I was 15, so I had already seen him in concert 3 or 4 times prior, and was a big fan of his songs and of his way. He was the most endearing performer, and I've been to a lot of concerts. Probably the most personable musician I've ever been in the audience of. We once saw him at this old movie theater in New Brunswick, New Jersey, where they said, now he says, I think that the fire marshal is going to hate me, but everybody, come on down, move down. So people were sitting in the aisles. He made it feel like you were in his living room, and he just sang stories. So he became a great favorite of mine, and that thus my hand went up so rapidly when he asked for help. And it was just that he died at such a young age because he was a social activist, and as I also mentioned in the book, He
Yes,
his
yes.
his work on world hunger, which is why he was even at that church to begin with, was as a fundraiser for Oxfam, the World
Yeah,
Hunger Organization.
and
And
isn't he the one that wrote "If I Were a Carpenter and You Were a Lady"? Is that him?
oh no, he
No.
wrote Cats in the Cradle. That's
Oh,
probably
Cat in the Cradle. That's the one. Yes, that's the one. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. I remember. And then you have something in here about the Who. That's a whole other story about.
that's the
And you were
rock side of
sitting.
me.
Pardon?
That's the harder rock side of me.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you were sitting what fourth to the right at Madison Square Garden, uh, and the Who is a very controversial group as well. So tell us about your experience there.
First thing I could tell you about that evening, which was in 1974, is that my ears are still ringing from it because it was the loudest thing I've ever been to. But it was also probably the most exciting event I had ever been to. Certainly at that time. So I was 17 then, and it was just it was hard to get a ticket, and it was great to see them. And controversy has existed since then. They're now down to two, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend. And in fact, one of their songs called "My Generation," the lyrics go, "I hope I die before I get old," which was controversial when it first came out. Well,
Right?
these two guys obviously got old before they died. So
Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's
yeah,
true.
which is
Well,
which is
now, but you said in the book, you talked about the fact that, and I think this is very unusual for a CPA. You talk about your humor. You said, I don't know where it started, but I've been laughing and trying to make other people laugh for as long as I can remember. Now, normally a person with humor who sees humor, etc., does not go into the profession of a CPA. So how did all that come about, and how did you keep your taste for humor in such a kind of rigid and technical position?
well. To answer your question, the stereotypical accountant is boring and conservative. So to say that it's a rip roaring good time in accounting is certainly is not the case. But but people are people for the most part, and they when you get them away from work, then there's certainly some people open up a little more and have some more less stereotypical traits of an accountant. But Bob Newhart was an accountant, and I'm trying to think of famous accountants who became comedians. And other than Bob Newhart, I don't think there are any. But it's just the way I was brought up with humor in the home, and
Well, Bob Newhart had a very dry sense of humor too. I mean, one of the things that I always was surprised at was when one of his characters on TV smiled, because he had such a dry sense of humor, and everything about him was so kind of rigid. That's what made him famous. But it's kind of interesting. So
right.
yeah, so that's something else. So you also talk about. In March of 2007, when you went to see your neurologist, and they did a brain scan, and he knew immediately that it was Parkinson's that you had, and his partner told you that it wasn't terminal, and that no two cases were alike, and no one progressed at a predetermined fast or slow pace. So, and you said he didn't even prescribe medicine at that time. So tell us what that was like, hearing your diagnosis. I mean, did you have any idea of what it was before you were told?
No clue.
No
I
clue.
knew that I had. What happened was my arm didn't swing when I walked. When I walked, and there was a guy in my office who pointed that out. I didn't even realize that. I didn't even know it. So when I had a little tingle in my left arm, in middle finger of my left arm, that was all I had. So when he pointed out that my arm didn't swing, that's what got me to the doctor. And then the MRI was just to rule things out. You know, the clinical diagnosis of Parkinson's is from observation, not from anything that you see on an X-ray. It's from They just look at the X-ray on the MRI to make sure that